Hey everyone, this is Coach Dave March here, and we're here for another episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. As you know, I am your host, David March, author of the book Vision in Action, as we talk about different entrepreneurs that have turned their vision into action. And today we have a guest, Casey Quinn. Casey Quinn was a corporate accountant working in corporate America, and he had a vision to be an entrepreneur, and he took that vision into action. And we're here to hear his story about how he's created successful companies and really how he's made a difference in the business world. Casey, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. Happy to give you the 30,000 foot view here, then dive in wherever we kind of want to go, right? But CPA by trade, spent about 10 years corporate America, public accounting, and quite frankly, hated every job that I ever had throughout that journey, which ended with getting fired. So, I took a big pay cut and took a local CFO job at a real estate company. Hated the culture, hated the owner. He ended up firing me after about 10 months. And that was kind of the day where I had enough of working for somebody else. Decided we were going to do this thing on our own. My wife gave me 6 months to figure out how to be an entrepreneur. And I went to action, to your point, right? I took massive action. And actually, Wednesday of this week in May here, for me, will be 6 years on my entrepreneurial journey. I've built $120 million plus real estate portfolio with all of the kind of servicing businesses off of that, between having the agent side, a construction side, property management side. We manage about 1,400 units in total. And then, hard money lending business, I built off of that. And as well as then about 2.5 years ago, I'm a CPA by trade. So we started an accounting company as well. How we were able to have such success is, my deep knowledge of accounting and finance. So, we decided we wanted to help other real estate investors across the country do the same. And so I scale an accounting company as well right now. That's really my main three focuses: is the real estate investment company, which then doves off into a hard money lending business, and the accounting company as well.
Wow. Well, you must have some kind of structures or systems in place that you use in each one of these companies that you can have a family and you can have a business and you have all these things, right? Because you would think that you're doing all these things and you got no time left. But is that the case?
Yeah, time's definitely a premium. I made the joke the other day that I don't have a lot of personal time right now. And the reason is I have three little ones at home as well. So I have a 4-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn at home. But I actually, funny story, when you talk about time and the importance of it, I'm a huge believer in really maximizing every single minute that we have. So with that being in mind, I literally bought a 30,000 foot commercial office building 3 minutes from my house in the suburban community that I live in, to cut down. My commute was 20 minutes. And so I made it 3 minutes instead of 20 to really save a couple hours every single week. It really adds up. And then it allows me also the flexibility on weekends to work super early in the morning. If I got, a lot of stuff to get done, I'll wake up 3, 4 in the morning and then be home by 8 if I have to help my wife with the kids back at work. So it creates a ton of flexibility there. Right, but your point, right, and the moral of your question in the story is, how do you create systems and processes to scale the business and be able to do more? And I've been able to successfully do that. Ironically enough, it's pretty cool. I'm not even on payroll anymore inside of my own real estate company that we started 6 years ago. I've literally scaled to call it chairman of the board, if you will. Sitting in the owner's box. I've scaled myself literally out of being the CEO. Now, certainly, I make strategic decisions, what we're buying, what we're selling, what the company trajectory, where we're going, and things. But in order to focus more full time as a CEO of the lending business and the accounting company, which I'm acting CEO of both of those businesses right now, I was able to put enough infrastructure. Now, I didn't do that right away, of course, right? Those businesses are relatively new for my time. But as of about 6 months ago, I've really been able to scale myself out of day-to-day activities inside of the real estate business. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. And it's amazing. I mean, yeah, we were talking off the call a little bit about your history in creating efficiencies. That's been something that been good at. And one of the things we'd love to talk about here on the Growth Mindset Podcast is about leadership. And so, as you grew these companies and everything, um, I want to talk a little bit about the leadership that you had to do that, to create the high performance team, create these great cultures, and then compare that with maybe some of the cultures that you saw in corporate America, which gave you maybe like a foundation of like, all right, this is what I don't want to do.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. What I think is authenticity, number one, right? You have to be extremely authentic to yourself, and then you have to be able to show a clear vision to everyone that's working for you. So they have to know who you are. That's through authenticity and creating extremely clear core values. so people understand who you are, and then a vision, right? What it is that we're after, so that we're all rowing the boat together. Those are some of the very key things that most businesses do not have. More importantly, when you get into corporate America and as you scale and a company's been around for a long time, right? 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, a lot of times you lose that, right? You've lost a founder. You have this executive team that sits up on a different floor. They're not involved in the business, right? On a different floor, being they're not involved in what's happening day to day. And so a lot of people lose care, lose passion, lose faith in what they're going after. And so they don't work as hard, right? I always tell people, happy people create the best, the highest and best use, right? Your highest and best use is happening when you're happy, first and foremost. So to me, it's all about culture, all about getting the right people in the right seats. That's the most important things, right? And then getting a system and a process in place that they can follow. Now, listen, the goal is that those folks create the systems and the processes because they're ever evolving, right? As a business grows, you're going to break it and you're going to fix it. And if you have the right mindset, right, growth mindset, and you have the right people that all have that inside of your organization, you're continuously straining that, stressing it, testing it, and continuing to scale and grow it. And so you have to have people that are willing to fight, right? To care about the passion, care about your customers or your vision, whatever it is that you're after. And then the other most important thing that I tell everybody is, right, you've got to understand what their highest and best use is. So you've got to make them happy, and then you've got to understand what their highest and best use is, right? Think about the people across the country that don't even know where they want to get dinner tonight or what they're having for dinner. And they have massive struggles around just what they're going to eat for dinner tonight. A lot of people don't know that, right? And so you have to give them that. You have to give them opportunity to understand, hey, here's what we're chasing. Here's how we're going to act. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to live our lives inside of this business. Do you want to be a part of this or not? But you make it extremely clear, right? Clarity around what it is that they're going to be doing, what it is the company is chasing, what it is that we're after, how we're going to work, how we're going to handle our customers, how we're going to handle ourselves, how we're going to treat people, how we're going to treat the work that we do, right? All of those things. And if you do that well and you do it with an abundance mindset, and then you take care of people and you make sure that they're happy, that's how you get top talent inside your organization. And top talent pays for itself day in and day out, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other side of it is that people really struggle with is, when do I hire the right people and how can I afford them, right? All that really is an investment. Coming from a real estate investor, understanding finance well, I've done 950 deals, right, in the real estate space. People are no different. They just have emotion. So you have to understand the emotion, right? But how do you do a good deal? How do you pay them well? Well, it's just an investment, right? And so how can I invest in a human? And so in order to create a bigger return, what's really cool, every real estate deal that I've ever done, being a finance guy, I understand within a certain, delta, if you will, what the upside's going to be. As long as we do our work, what the downside's going to be, and we're going to land somewhere in the middle of that. I could do the math, right? The really cool thing with humans is you can have a downside. You understand what the downside is, right? Obviously, the investment, same as a real estate deal, but the upside's unlimited. And so if you think about that, how can you nurture and invest into that human more than you are the real estate deal? And if you do it well, your upside is untapped, right? It's uncapped because you can go on and create, the next Steve Jobs, if you will, right? The next, top performing employee or whatever it is inside a company. So I always think about it that way: is employees aren't costs to the business, they're investments in the business. And if you find the right investments, that's when things take off.
Well, I love that answer, man. That was great. Yeah. Your people are your biggest investment. It's so interesting though, with knowing this, but knowing that their investment, there's a lot of people that would throw away their best people for maybe like a 10% increase, maybe a 20% increase in salary. And you have to think about all of the previous investment that you put into that person. And also from a financial perspective, and of the ramifications of that, in the sense of, well, what would it cost from a recruitment standpoint if I needed to hire someone new? There might be a 20%, 25% fee from a recruiting standpoint. What about all the training that we've invested into this particular individual? Are we just going to let that all just go to the wayside as well? How about the loss of productivity because we don't have the people that we need? So it's just like, yeah, uh, it's funny that they don't. A lot of people kind of don't see that. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's all real cost, right? You literally just mentioned a bunch of real costs that go into it in terms of turnover, change management that's associated with growth, associated with making the bad hires, right? All of those things are as real as it gets. Most of the smartest people in the world talk about how important it is to hire correctly and then fire faster, right? You can't have the wrong people inside the organization. So yes, number one, right? The moment you lose someone, you've got to train them, or training that goes away. I think there was an old saying, right? What happens if you train someone and they leave? And then
Yeah.
the other person, I forget, it might have been Steve Jobs and Tim Cook or
I think,
somebody.
yeah, it might have been Peter Drucker, and I
Yeah.
know the quote is it might have been
Yep.
Peter Drucker.
Yeah, he basically says, "What happens if we train our employees and they leave?" And then the response is, "What happens if we don't and they stay?"
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Which is certainly true. I mean, I think training is a big important piece, right? Continuous improvement, constant development's huge. But I think, even further from the standpoint of the real costs associated with employee turnover, not hiring the right person in the first place, there's a massive, hidden cost to it, which is around your culture, right? Having the wrong person inside of a business, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you have 50 people working inside your organization, you have 5 of them that are just crushing your culture, bringing everything down, bringing the team down. Well, that's significantly more costly. So you could be losing yourself millions on a thousand dare cost, if you will, right? Meaning you might be paying them 50 grand or 100 grand or 200 grand. It's all irrelevant, but they might be costing your business millions if you're letting them inside your organization because they can poison it, right? And so I don't care how talented they are, right? Are they part of the bigger picture? Are they a broader team, right? Then I always call they're independent. There's independent producers, there's leaders, there's managers, and there's different levels to this thing, right? Your best independent producers in the entire company might not necessarily be good leaders and managers. And so you have to understand, who are you putting to run and oversee and develop and train, your workforce, compared to who can and who can't do it, who's great in the workforce, right? You see it far too often in businesses, right? And I go back to my consulting days. I used to travel the country consulting, financial planning in and out, FP&A groups, financial management. And I go in these businesses and you would have, right, what happens in most companies, especially and even in sales, right? You have this incredible salesman who's just crushing it, head over heels better than anybody else. And then you promote them. Now they're a leader, right? Now they're
oh
tasked with
yeah, I love
managing
this
other people.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah, and they can't do it. They don't know
yeah,
how to do it, and they're not good at it, right?
yeah,
So just because they're really good salesmen or really good at their job doesn't mean they're really good at managing and leading other people. And so you have to think about it from that standpoint and making sure you put everybody in your team in their highest and best use. And that's the leader's job, right? The leader's job is to lead by putting people in a position to be in the right seat inside of your organization and have that right person and train, develop, and be amazing at that position, and understanding that everybody is unique to them, and you have to put them in those right positions. And that's what's extremely important in business in order to truly scale.
yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like I was saying, I love this conversation. That's what I always talk about. I mean, that's kind of the idea of personality types and understanding your different personality types, different people, and from that standpoint, utilizing their strengths, as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, that's actually the example I use all the time about the salesperson. I mean, I think it's the easiest one to make
Yep.
because it's like, it's sales is like obviously like a bottom line activity, like it's revenue, right? So it's like it's the easiest one to make. But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, so many times the person that gets promoted, actually, there's also some the principle in industrial organizational psychology about this too, where the person that gets promoted usually isn't the person that's like the most competent or the best person for the job. It's like usually the
Yeah.
salesperson that's making the most money for the company, and he was top producer for the year. And they're like, "Oh, we're gonna make you a manager," but then they don't give him any of the training
Yep.
to actually have him be a good manager or a good leader. And then he's just like trying to influence and persuade his internal people, and it's like you got to make them happy.
Yeah.
Selling is very different than leading and managing. That is for certain, right? And so just because they're really good salesmen, they're really good at negotiation, persuasion, relationships on that side doesn't make them good leaders and managers. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah. I'm glad you brought that one up. Yeah, that one's a classic example.
For sure.
So yeah, as we talk about, culture and different personality types and all these things, and we go to this idea of growing a company, working with different people. Um, have you been able to work with different diverse groups of people to create like a problem solving consciousness that would create more innovative solutions or innovative things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways you can look at that. I mean, we have relatively consistent way that we do things. So everybody inside of all of my organizations, we do what's called predictive index, the PI scale. So
Uh-huh.
everyone takes those tests. We give them out to everybody, so everybody understands everybody's PI, which allows us to significantly work well together, work better together, because we understand. We're certainly not perfect, right? But we understand how everybody else acts, right? For instance, mine's an off the chart A, which means I'm incredibly independent, and then I'm very driving, right? So I have a very low C. So people understand that I'm going to come into the table with my own thoughts. I'm going to think extremely strong about my own thoughts, believe that they're right, absent any other evidence. And then I'm going to push incredibly hard, both for my thoughts and what we want, as well as just in general in a company, right? And so I'm a foot to the pedal all of the time PI, right? Where some people in my organization are extremely social or and collaborative and social, right? Or opposite. And so you can kind of think about it this way, right? I always give the example if they're a high B and a low C, or a high B and a low B, high C, then you might not need to, you'd have to work and talk through things with them, right? Where some people are opposite of that, where you got to give them an idea and let them go think about it for a couple of days. And so that allows us to work together more collaboratively. And then we also run on what's called EOS. So the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is Gino Wickman's book called Traction. It's one of the best books I've ever read. I mean, it's very, formal around what it's for, which is how to produce a high-powered organization. So all of my small companies run on that. What that does is essentially create a foundation or an organization on how we run. So we have consistent meetings every single week. We have consistent ways that we create our issues list, how we solve our problems. Everything's incredibly consistent. We have our data that tells us what's going on in the business. And so everything's really consistent around how we work together and how we solve problems. And so we sit in meetings, right? I sit in leadership meetings in the businesses every single week. We have our issues and then we work through them, right? We identify them, we discuss them, and we solve them as a collective team. And then we don't worry about the things that aren't as important, right? And so that allows us to create infrastructure for ourselves kind of on how we make decisions, because I think one of the biggest fundamental challenges in business is the shiny object, right? At the end of the day. And so it's very easy for us to get off track of what it is we're trying to do. At the business level, like I see it far too often, entrepreneurs starting more businesses, right? Oh, you have too many businesses. And I ask people that all the time, like, oh, which is why generally I ask, like, what's the size, right? People are like, oh, I have 4 businesses. I'm like, oh, cool, me too. Well, what's the size? Well, I'm doing $100,000 a year in revenue in all 4. Well, you don't really have 4 businesses, right? You don't even have 4 full-time jobs.
Yeah,
And so,
that's true.
right, thinking about it that way, around you've got to create infrastructure for your business and for your life around how is it that you're going to go after whatever it is that you want. And for me, right, it's set the vision, work all the way backwards through EOS inside of the businesses, work all the way backwards to 90-day goals. So we literally every single 90 days come back together as a team, set our 90-day goals. And what I'm very good at is making sure we hold ourselves as companies accountable to those. Like, I don't want to hear about anything else. I don't want to hear about the other ideas you have inside of the business. It's not important. We agreed 90 days ago that these goals were the most important goals that we're going to accomplish in the next 90 days. Until we accomplish those goals, get out of my office, right? Like, and not literally, but figuratively, like, get out of my office. We're not going to have conversations
Well, you got to
around
have
goals that
alignment.
aren't
I think
important to us.
what you're talking about is alignment. So you know, I mean, I think that for me, what comes to mind is just kind of all singing the same song. That's the to me, I'm into music and stuff, so I always think about that. There's a song called "We're All Gonna Sing the Same Song." For me, that's what I think about because it really is the idea of just like creating that alignment, creating that unity. We all need to be singing the same song on the same path, going in the same
Not
direction.
only that, let me give you a different example, Dave. Like, imagine you're all singing the same song, right? And then you, who's in charge of deciding what song we sing, every 10 days, every 2 days decides, hey, you know what, we're going to sing a different song today. And then comes into the office the next week with a different song on the radio, right? And now you have this big team that's singing the same song as you. We just got good at singing the song together. We are now singing, right? We're now in line and in chorus. And all
Yeah,
of a sudden, the very next day, you change the song on us and you keep changing the song on us all of the
yeah,
time. Well,
yeah.
like, it's really hard. I'm going to get sick of singing the song with you. Like, I don't care about your song anymore. I'm going to only care about my song. And so it's that combined with your point of making sure we're all singing the same song, but making sure as leaders and managers, right, that we're not changing what song they're singing, right? And
Love
that's
it.
just as important to it. And so that's why, again, we set these goals. And it's like, We don't want to be changing the song. We can't be changing the song because we're not going to be able to. It's a lot easier if I'm singing alone to change my song. But there's 80 of us in this room singing a song and I decide I'm going to change it. And all I do is a really quick, hey, we're going to change the song. The drummer, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody has to know that song and be able to change on a dime and play their instrument to that song. Well, odds are with no practice, the song's not going to be very good.
Totally. I love that you just flew with that analogy. That was good. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, as we kind of get to the end here, Casey, this is a really great episode. I thought this was a lot of fun. We talked a lot about systems. We talked about EOS and the book Traction. We talked about leadership and some other personality stuff. As we kind of end this episode, is there any other, maybe some books or quotes or something like that from your journey that we can learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell you this, right? The most important thing is getting around folks that have been there, done that are providing the education, whether that be, trainers like yourself, David, or masterminds out there. I have two or three incredibly important mentors that have changed my life. One of them is Ken Clothier in the real estate investment space. And one of his kind of famous quotes, he has it tattooed on his arm, literally, is the time is now. I'm a firm, massive believer in the time is now. And I used to wear, I don't wear jewelry, but I used to wear a wristband that said actually it said FYE, which stands for FUCK, your excuses, the F word, FYE. And then, the other side of it is the time is now. Those are two things for me where I just firmly believe in that and getting in the right room. So I just take massive action. It's not, and even like I don't read a ton of books. I've certainly have read a bunch of books. Like I'm not saying that I don't read, but a lot of people come out here and say, oh, I read a book a day or a book a week every single morning. I have my morning routines and everything else. Like that's not necessarily me. I just believe in going and taking massive action. If you wake up every single day and do more than anybody else, and then every single day you reflect on what you did and learn from your mistakes, you're going to be out ahead of pretty much the entire world, period. And like, I'm not just talking it, I proved it, right? I've built a $120 million real estate portfolio in 6 years. We were over 100 million in 5 years. And so my action has allowed me to do that because every day I woke up taking absolute massive action. Because why? The time is now. Like, I don't know what tomorrow is. It's today. So that's what I think it is, right? Just go out and start doing things every single day. And if you don't know what you're doing, get in the rooms of the people that do, listen to them, then go do it, right? While you're doing it, listen to them and then learn from what you're doing. There's no better, God's best teacher is action, right? Making mistakes. I've made more than anyone in the last 6 years. I can guarantee you I've made more mistakes than anybody. The reason I have is because I've taken more action than anybody, right? In order to have those mistakes. And then what I've tried to get better at is whenever I make them, identifying the mistakes I've made earlier, condensing time in order to solve those problems. And what I mean by that is sometimes you got to get in the right rooms, see what other people are doing, ask the people who have already done what it is that you're doing, how to compress the time, and they're willing to help you do that. So that would be kind of my biggest advice to everybody that's listening that wants to move forward with whatever it is they're doing, that wants to become a leader, that wants to do entrepreneurship, whatever it is in your life that you want. Like wanting it's not going to get it done. You've got to go do it, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to do it for you. You've just got to go do it yourself. And if you do that, you might not land exactly where you want, but it might not be where you want to land. But you're never going to know that until you actually take action on your way to there.
That was encouraging. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And also, important point there is the difference between a mentor and a coach. There's also a difference there. I mean, the people that are mentors to you, people that were like been there, done that, that's one thing. And then there's mentors, there's coaches, there's consultants, there's different types of things that there's a nuance there that, I'm more the coach and trainer kind of piece. And there's a skill set that's of that as well. And
yeah, and I think to your point though, right? It's like who can you get around that can help you same when you're hiring somebody, right? It's the same concept if you're hiring someone to help you as opposed to hiring someone to come work for you.
Yeah.
Right. What's the right person, right seat? Are they the right fit? Can they help you get to wherever it is that you want to go or help you do whatever it is that you want to do? Right. And can you work well together at the end of the day? Right. Do you have the same core values? Do you have the same visions? Do you have those same pieces to the puzzle? That's who I would go after.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, this has been an impactful episode here. I'm glad we packed it with a lot of good guidance. As we kind of sign off here, why don't you give the people like a way to contact you, your website, and things like that?
Yeah, sure. Accounting company's Accruity. Crudy.com is our website there. Real estate companies in the city of Pittsburgh. So, national listeners probably can't help you a ton. Everything we do on the real estate side is in Pittsburgh.
Local.
But our company is CityLife Residential. I am on Instagram and Facebook, Casey Quinn on Facebook. I frequent there often with posts and different things, encouraging messages. And then my Instagram is at Casey Ryan Quinn. Not on there as much, but do have plenty of videos and things on there. But happy to connect. Anyone that's interested.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for listening in. And that's it for the Growth Mindset Podcast.